spring gives way to summer, and I'm here to provide the undeniably best takes on what the best and worst anime of spring 2025 were. Let's not waste time and jump right into placing shows on the tier list. There'll be some things we don't agree on, so feel free to disagree with me in the comments below. Sword of the Demon Hunter definitely lived up to being the dark horse of spring. The journey of Jinya as he travels Japan, comes to terms with being a demon, and the anger and regret caused by Suzune as he searches for her. All of this kept my interest. It was very reminiscent of Demon Slayer, without the cringeworthy lack of seriousness we see from the characters like Zenitsu, or the unnecessary usage of the old school shonen pacing for something that's nowhere near as long. No doubt critiques everyone disagrees with. The only major flaw I had with Sword of the Demon Hunter came with the end of the 9th and all of the 10th episode. This was a flash forward 154 years into the future that was very jarring, as well as diminishing some of the newer characters that we just started getting to know. Sword of the Demon Hunter ended up being one of just 3 anime that I watched episode to episode, unlike many of the others on this list that I ended up binging towards the end of spring. So I ended up placing it into A, and this is the first anime to go onto the tier list. Summer Pockets was a decent anime to watch as the summer months got underway. It was reminiscent of that last summer after graduating high school, where you're transitioning into adulthood but not necessarily ready for it. Maybe it's that last time with childhood friends or going to that get-together spot. But one thing's for certain, this is the last truly free moments before entering into an era of self-sufficiency and responsibility you've been shielded from. Summer Pockets will go into B tier. Mobile Suit Gundam Gux is the worst Gundam anime I've ever watched. It feels like a soulless ChatGPT prompt of highlights from the Gundam universe, without any sort of understanding of why those titles succeeded. Slamming a beloved character like Char in and doing jarring flashbacks with him made such little sense unless the point was pandering for nostalgia's sake, which even then, I don't see older fans enjoying the vibrant colors of the anime. I guess then the studio thought people enjoy Gundam fights, so let's throw that in too, even though they serve no purpose here except hearing a character say Kira Kira and don't make you feel like the new types learned how to pilot a Gundam at all. Oh, and let's make one of the pilots an empty-headed prodigy, cause Mikazuki from Iron-Blooded Orphans was kinda like that, which will let us tap into the cool and mysterious character market. Lastly, just cause Witch from Mercury did it and we want to tap into the female anime watcher market, let's have Machu be the lead character so we have her become infatuated with the nonchalant dreadhead. That way we can have our high school lead strip and lay down on a Gundam to tap in with the Gooners. There was no real direction here for the story, and my only main takeaway is that they somehow thought pandering to every demographic would win out in the end. Well, if it's not obvious, Gux was a slap in the face for all Gundam fans and idiots who watched the whole thing like I did. Even then, spring was such an ass season of anime, this ends up at the top of C tier. I say this with great disappointment. Bye Bye Earth Season 2 wasn't it. Not enough work was put into convincing me to get behind the escalation of Adonis's betrayal after getting led astray to the point of causing this chaotic destruction of society. You can get why they'd want to take the story this route, but you're just emotionally dissatisfied with it. The music that I'd praised in the first season also didn't hit the same. I hate to do it, but Bye Bye Earth Season 2 is going into D, and I won't be watching continuations of it. You know when going to a sushi restaurant, how they bring out pickled ginger beforehand? That's how I see anime like Witch Watch, a palate cleanser after something better. This anime wasn't all that great, and I did find myself more often than not going multiple episodes without finding anything humorous. The concept of a witch being hunted down wasn't conducive to humor, and instead was underutilized more than anything. Witch Watch was occasionally funny but unmemorable, so C tier is a good spot for it to land. The premise of an aging swords instructor being uplifted by his students who went on to become some of the greatest warriors thanks to him is full of promise. But the anime from Old Country Bumpkin and Master Swordsman failed to live up to that. Beryl is dropped into scenarios he's unfamiliar with or ran away from in the past with no build up to connect with. Fighting overwhelmingly powerful beasts, going toe to toe with magic users with no experience versing them, and killing people for the first time. He gets through all these difficulties with no issue or internal reflection, which makes these moments that most of the time is spent on less rewarding. When we do feel rewarded as viewers is moments that play into Beryl's strong suits, like when he's sword instructing or being a parental figure to Mui. If more time had been spent on that while building into the badass moments this rush to show, maybe from Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman would have been better than D tier. And don't you find it suspicious that almost all of his old students are females with outfits to highlight their thighs? What I thought would be a banger anime that explored the human condition and our mortality didn't turn out to be what I'd hoped for. Lazarus was instead an action-packed heist-esque show where MAPPA once more flexed on all the other studios, not only animation-wise, but by doing it with another original title. Unfortunately, it felt like someone working on the story liked the concept of Suicide Squad a bit too much, and pushed the anti-hero group meant to save the world trope. I'm also critical of the lack of civil unrest. Society, for the most part, went on acting as usual, and we didn't get a purge scenario. The best part of the anime was definitely the fight choreography. Just made the movements of the characters very satisfying to watch. Lazarus wasn't amazing, but it sure was better than the majority of anime this spring. So C tier above GQuuuuuuX it is. Can a boy-girl friendship survive was so trash. The anime felt indecisive in the direction it wanted to go, whether that's pairing Yui with Himari, Rin, or some weird harem thing. Rin just came across as someone who's thrown in to create chaos since many actions she takes are contradictory to her expressed goal, plus not caring for Yui's dream. Lastly, she's there to be a token love triangle first love / childhood friend character, which is so played out at this point. The biggest issue I had with this series came from how insane the adults are. They actively sabotage Yui and Himari's accessory creating dreams while creating schisms between friends, and then the anime's messaging ultimately supports the sabotage through the idea that abandoning your dreams for love is perfectly fine. These are first year high schoolers, which should be a time in life when adults are doing their best to support the success of children, not tearing them down. Their actions end up coming across as the anime not being able to create conflict without extreme measures. Can a boy-girl friendship survive was deserving of D tier. Atelier Meister is part of an ever-increasing popularity fantasy trend in anime where the main character is so strong and yet so stupid that everyone around them makes decisions for them. Kurt isn't allowed to be a true main character since he's denied impact on the plot, and you can just tell there won't be a groundbreaking moment for that to happen for him. The common trade-off for this lack of autonomy is them developing over time and realize everyone's controlling them. Or it can be a plot setup. Something where this is done well would be Promised Neverland, where the control of the children by mother is for sinister reasons. It was also extremely annoying while watching Atelier Meister to experience its sense of cutesy innocence with Kurt and Akuri, just for there to be a harem of females thirsting over him while he lacks any control in his life. This anime is deserving of D tier. It was sold to me that the beginning after the end was some great competitor to Jobless Reincarnation. However, even if the studio didn't fumble with mid-animation, the source material was overrated. This was nothing more than your usual overpowered nonchalant MC or a farming isekai. It tries and fails to pretend like Arthur is growing and training into a strong character, but everything is so rushed and poorly explored that it comes across as half-hearted. The only real change is Arthur coming to the conclusion that it's better to put your trust in others, which he couldn't realize in his old life. Unfortunately, it feels like our MC keeps being put into situations that are at odds with that growth, so it might as well have not even happened. I will say the beginning after the end gets points for not ignoring that Arthur was once from another world, and that's more than I can say for a lot of isekais. C tier. When it came to the first season of Windbreaker, by the end, I was able to say it was a solid anime. With the second season, I lost interest by the episode. There weren't many character motivations to be attached to, the lack of fighting and the character growth we'd become used to in the first season was sorely missed. Not to mention, I found that with all the downtime, it was more difficult to ignore how nonsensical the setting is. Like we're supposed to believe all the delinquent schools fight all the day and have no great teacher Onizuka-esque teachers to educate or impart their lived experience to the students. Plus, there doesn't seem to be a path after delinquent high school. So what value can I take from seeing a character improve over time if their existence just ends after graduating? Windbreaker Season 2 looks great and has well choreographed fights, but I don't want to continue watching an anime I have no emotional connection with, so this is a unique D tier. If you approach Kowloon generic romance with the notion that its focus is on romance, you'll be disappointed. The substance of it is examining what self is, and for some, that could be romance. How do you see the world, how others see you, and how you see yourself are explored by not only Reiko, but many of the supporting cast as they attempt to become their absolute self. As the secrets and regrets hidden within the second Kowloon unravel, who the characters truly are becomes more defined. I was concerned initially that this being a soft side sci-fi would be to its detriment, since the category plays fast and loose with rules, resulting in something illogical. But can't we say the very idea of self is vague and illogical? Anime that force me to look inward and examine myself are my favorite to watch, and Kowloon generic romance proved to be one of those anime to me. I'm crowning it the S tier of spring. With the Gorilla God's go-to girl, there's nothing positive to say and only negative. It's a bland fantasy anime that swaps the male and female roles of the characters like this would somehow improve the fact that there's nothing of substance here. I still break out in cold sweats every time I see any character that reminds me of the Fruit of Evolution, so I'll be crowning the Gorilla God's go-to girl the F tier of spring, which is interesting that both of the crowns are back to back. Before Shoshimin How to Become Ordinary Season 2 aired, I was cynical about why we even needed a second season to begin with. Season 1 not only wrapped up all its plot points in one neat emotional climax of Kabuto and Asanai's apparent integration into society as ordinary people, but needed only 10 episodes to do it. That's unheard of in the modern era, where we constantly see anime flop over the course of 12 episodes. The second season did end up showing that a continuation was deserved and focused on exploring the idea of whether or not our main characters actually enjoy an ordinary life. Unfortunately, that also resulted in a show that wasn't able to reach the same peak we've seen previously, and I think the title created a lot of expectations that conflicted with the nature of the sequel. With all that said, Shoshimin How to Become Ordinary Season 2 will be placed into B. Teogonia was an anime that went under the radar, but not due to it being bad, far from it. The world was something fresh I hadn't really seen from a fantasy anime, and the power system of making a pact with a god, the god's altar effect on the environment, and the consuming of god stones from other beings increasing one's power was all a great way for Kai to develop instead of immediately being overpowered, as well as make time for world building. The biggest standout for me was this isekai not being one that abandoned who the main character was before coming to the new world. As an advocate for it, I hate seeing anime after anime that use isekai as a fast way to spice up their material and then massively alter the new world without really exploring what could have been cool fantasy societies. Teogonia didn't go to the extent of something like Mushoku Tensei, where we deal with Rudeus's trauma, but instead subtly influenced how Kai develops his power as though he had amnesia. If you take into account that there was no real hype to push in front of new viewers, this anime was a massive success. All in all, a worthwhile watch that's only real negative being that our MC looked like he was wearing underwear for a couple of the latter episodes. A tier. Now on to the last anime of the tier list. The Brilliant Healer's New Life in the Shadows is plain and simple fantasy slop. There's no meaningful direction with the plot. One moment we're healing people in the slums for money, and then the next we're infiltrating a healer organization with no buildup of the main character's motive. Setting and characters that don't push forward the agenda that Zenos is an all-powerful healer capable of doing everything are quickly abandoned, and we're just expected to accept it and the fact that a healer can somehow do everything. What a way to end this, right into D tier. With that, everything's been placed on the tier list. I seriously hated Spring 2025 more than I've hated any season that's came before it, and I'm glad to put it behind me for good. What did you agree with, disagree, or straight up hate my take on? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, I'm out.